I am Lori Boyan-Larea, President of Workforce Solutions, right here in Greater Dallas. That means the entire Dallas County area. You want to talk restaurants? Let's talk. Dallas, Addison. As you can tell, I love my restaurants. When I got here, I started photographing. It's like, this is the Mecca. This is the place to go. So thank you so much for inviting us today. We have 180 offices of Workforce Solutions in the state of Texas. Right here in Dallas County, we have 8. You go to Houston and they have like 26. We are everywhere you are. We are like a retail or a restaurant industry. We try to be in the communities. We try to be as close as possible. We would love to help you. And to do that, I brought my notes just so I don't leave anything out. We've had a really tough time. We know you have had a tough time. This last 2.5 years, and of course, when you see things that are popping up again and going back to yellow and hopefully no red over the new variants, you just kind of go, no. The fatigue is with all of us. Our retail operations were shut down for quite some time. Everything was virtual. And we did a lot of curbside. And I know you guys, bravo, for meeting us with curbside. That was an amazing transformation. Patio seating, all the things you've done. I know you've done the best you could do to keep things afloat. And I know some have fallen under. Some are starting up. We have brand new restaurants in this community, so we're here to help find that talent base. So I've got a couple of hints for you, things that I tell everybody in this community, because we're all fighting over the same talent. Right now, 16 to 24-year-olds are still double-digit unemployment. It's not who you want, but it's who's out there. And nobody else does want them. They can't work in medical under 18. They can't work in certain situations under a certain age. That's true in restaurant, but you got to go for the aspirational hire. Find those that are not 100% of what you want because they're 100% of what your competitor wants, right? They'll leave you in a week for $10 more. So we're talking about finding you the talent you need now. Lots of people work with us because we also house the Texas Rehabilitation Organization. So through the Texas Workforce Commission, we have hundreds of people coming to our office who have disabilities or differently abled, and they work well. They work well for everybody. Ex-offenders, conversation is open for people with background checks, people who want a background-friendly job. I think we'll have a job fair in this community in a few months on that level. We do so much in job fairs throughout the state. It could be virtual job fair, which was a big thing for a couple of months in this. We also do Facebook job fairs. Love to help any of you who want to come on camera. We have a big audience on our Facebook page. We just tell them, here's the employer, and then you do the sales pitch. And I do mean sales pitch. If you're doing HR these days, you better put your sales department on the front end. Your sales cap, if you're the sales department. You've got to pitch it and sell it so that people want to work for you. It isn't always about the money. It's about the spin, because they want to know they're doing something and working with a team they're going to like. I have a 35-year-old son who is in your business in Oklahoma City. And watching him try to navigate, he manages large groups of bartenders. Watching him try to get them in, keep them healthy, and keep them from flying over to the competition. It is real. But it takes camaraderie. Young adults want to be in a team. They don't want to work independently. They want to be in a team. Isn't that what we taught them? Yeah, go be in the soccer team, go be in baseball. These are hints that we can give employers through the work that we do. That's why I offer you this morning. There are lots of people looking for the right fit, and it isn't always the money. In a lot of cases, it fits my schedule, close to my home. How many of us are sick of driving in the traffic? Okay, if you live in Houston, Dallas, Austin, you've about given up. We have acquired so many new wonderful residents from everywhere, particularly California, to the Dallas area that you can't pass. You can't get by anywhere. So I don't want to take up all of your time. So Tommy's got the news for you today. Things I want to tell you about. We can do a lot of training online for you. We have something called Retail Pays, and that's where we teach customer service skills online. Metrics is a free online platform. It's on the Texas Workforce Commission website. It's on our local websites. You can have these kinds of skills for your people. You just have to guide your team to those platforms. It's free of charge. Other things we've got right now, we help to develop your workforce through Paths for Texas. That operates in Corpus Christi, Houston, and up here, and in the greater Austin area. This is a process of teaching people how to apply their skills to your jobs. It's hard for some people. They don't want to break through. They don't want to do anything that they're not comfortable with. So we try to get them comfortable with the industry, comfortable with customer service skills. That's a hard one, I know. We also provide labor market information so you can ping the salaries against the competition in your area. That labor market information is very special, and it's changing every month. But we put it out there, again, free. Subsidized work. If you want somebody to work in your shop but you can't afford them, it's possible that we can pay their salary while they're in training. That would be work experience, particularly people who have not had a viable work history. But I mean, look at it. What would you have to lose? You take on somebody who's marginal. We're picking up the bill for their wages for the time that they're training. You get to keep them. If you don't want to keep them, we take them to another employer. It's a good win-win for the community. Adult education and English language skills. We will actually do those things on site. A good model here is Cafe Momentum. How many of you know Cafe Momentum? Chef Hauser. It's an amazing operation. He's taking kids who really need to find their way, and he's doing it through food service, how to work a restaurant. He does an amazing job. What we did was come in and say, let's get you guys high school diplomas, not just GEDs. Do you know how mom's face lights up when the kid says, I got a high school diploma, not a GED? It's an amazing opportunity, and we have this throughout Texas. So the adult education, English language skills, let us help your people. Let us help your folks. We even do citizenship. We work with people to make them citizens, not just legal resident aliens, people who can work. Beyond that, I know I'm spitting it all out fast, guys. Work in Texas. I'll give you one last plug. Most of you know of Work in Texas. It is the Texas Workforce Commission statewide job bank. It helps you look for talent. Please go in and make sure you're listed in Work in Texas so people can find you and your jobs. With that, I'm going to give it to Tommy to tell you all of the things I know you're waiting to hear. I saw one person leave. I'm sorry for that. There are unemployment benefit questions and issues you want answered. I'm going to stick around, though, if you need us. And we do have a booth here, 1706. And a gentleman there, Mr. Sorrell, is waiting to serve you. That's David. And you can pick up flyers for both Tommy's presentation and mine. I'll give it to Tommy.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me okay? All right, very good. All right, well, I'm here to talk with y'all about chargebacks, but also the entire context of the system, how chargebacks fit into the entire unemployment compensation system. And I know that y'all would probably not be here unless you had some specific unemployment claim related questions, or your unemployment taxes, or something's gone wrong with chargebacks, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to try to cover as many details as I can in the time that we have. But also they asked me, Tommy, make sure that you leave time for questions. And if you have questions, then the TRA staff will bring a microphone to you so that your question can be easily heard. And they're also, I think, live streaming this, so it's important that your question be heard. And I'll also repeat the question just to make sure. So first thing I'd like to say is, especially in Commissioner Demerson's office, we are very, very much aware and very grateful for the fact that we are servants of y'all. We basically understand and appreciate that your taxes, the federal unemployment taxes that y'all pay to IRS every quarter, pay our salaries. They pay for the entire system. And the unemployment benefits that your ex-employees might receive that might result in chargebacks or maybe not, those benefits are paid out of the state unemployment taxes. So we have a mentality that we are here to serve y'all. And in Commissioner Demerson's office, he takes that mission very, very seriously. He's the commissioner representing employers. He's been in that position since August the 19th of 2019, so he's coming up on 3 years now. And it's been an incredible 3 years, because that includes the entire time of the pandemic. And I'm sure that I don't have to tell y'all how much life changed for your industry and Texas in general with that pandemic. It changed the whole world, literally. But employer taxes pay for the system, and we're very much aware of that. So we're your employees. We are there to help you. And one of our goals in Commissioner Demerson's office is to help provide in some way some kind of a tangible return on your tax dollar beyond just paying taxes to the government and getting a government that regulates you. We want to go beyond that. We want you to feel like you're getting your money's worth out of the taxes. And for us, the reward comes if we ever hear the comment, well, wow, I feel like, my tax dollars, at least, with y'all, are well spent. And they are. They really, really are. So real quickly on unemployment claims. The entire system is a claim-driven system. An unemployment claim does not happen without it being initiated by a claimant, a former employee. At the time that somebody becomes unemployed, they are no longer performing work for pay. At that point, they can file an unemployment claim. Even though they may be still on your payroll as an employee, they're on your active books, maybe you're expecting them to come back after a leave of absence or something like that. If they're not performing work for pay, then they can be considered unemployed, and they can file an unemployment claim. What happens with that unemployment claim depends upon a lot of different criteria, a lot of different requirements in the law. It's not a cakewalk for claimants either, okay? It's tough for employers, and it's tough for employees, because the law is complicated, very, very complicated, and that's why it helps to have somebody like Commissioner Demerson's legal staff available to call. And right now, why don't I just go ahead and mention, for those of y'all who don't have it already, the employer hotline in Texas, the toll-free employer hotline, make a note of this, is 800-832-9394. And on that, you'll get a voice option, a voice menu system. Choose option 4. That will get you directly to Commissioner Demerson's legal team. Other things are at other options, but option 4 gets you directly to Commissioner Demerson's legal team, and I'm one of them. I've been around for a while with the agency. I've served a lot of different employer commissioners. He's got some other legal staff, Elsa Ramos and Mario Hernandez, and our newest member is Jiku John. He's been there almost 1 year now. But all 4 of us can answer questions about unemployment claims. And, we're allowed to, kind of, in a way, take sides. We can be your advocate in an unemployment claim. We can't give legal advice, and we can't, officially represent you at an appeal hearing or anything like that. Also, we are not allowed to write your claim responses for you or your appeal letters if you lose a claim determination. But we can help you understand what the TWC is looking for and what might be in a good claim response or appeal letter. And we can let you know what might happen in various scenarios, but we're unable to promise what the agency will do, because we're kind of separate and apart from the actual unemployment insurance division of the agency that investigates the claims and makes determinations on the claims, and then that processes appeals and holds appeal hearings, and then manages the commission appeal process. We are separate from that. Our commissioner is one of 3 commissioners at the Workforce Commission. There's a commissioner representing the public. He's the chair of the commission. That's Brian Daniel. He represents the public at large. There's also a commissioner representing labor. That's Julian Alvarez. And he represents employees and job seekers and claimants. Our boss, Commissioner Demerson, represents employers, And so he's your representative on the commission. Together, those three commissioners make the final level decisions in all of the unemployment appeals that might come before the agency. And because of the pandemic, our claim and appeal volume has shot up tremendously. Some of y'all who may have appeals pending in the system, you may have noticed that it's been a while since you filed that appeal. There's a huge backlog. We are doing our best to deal with that backlog. Our appeals department has hired, hundreds of new hearing officers, but it's tough to keep them sometimes too because, talented young people, they tend to go elsewhere. That's something that y'all see in your own restaurants. And so we're constantly staffing up, training new people, but trying to keep up with the claim and appeal volume as best we can. But one constant is always there, and that's Commissioner Aaron Demerson, and he's your representative. And if an appeal comes before the commission, he's going to be taking a good, hard, close look at that with his legal team. And if there is any way for your company to prevail, he will be able to find it. And then it just depends upon the vote. All right, so that's the basic of the commission. Let me tell you a little bit about the claim process. When somebody is unemployed, they file an unemployment claim, then a notice of the unemployment claim goes out to the last employing unit. Now, the claimant may have had some other employers before they filed their unemployment claim. What's really important for an unemployment claim and determining chargeback liability is the base period of the claim. And the base period is a year-long period that lags behind the time that the initial claim is filed. There is a quarter that's in progress when the claim is filed. That's not included in the base period. There's also a quarter that lags behind the time that the initial claim is filed. That is not in the base period. The base period consists of the first 4 of the last 5 completed calendar quarters before a claim is filed. So just a good way to imagine is this. If somebody files an unemployment claim today, which they could do, it can be filed online or over the phone. The system is going to backdate it to the Sunday preceding the claim. So if they file today, it's going to be dated today, July the 10th. We're in the 3rd quarter, all right? So if they file in starting today and all the way through the end of September, that 3rd quarter claim is going to leave out the 3rd quarter from the base period and the 2nd quarter, and the base period is going to be the last 3 quarters of 2021 and the 1st quarter of 2022. Whichever employers reported wages for that claimant during the base period of that claim, those employers are going to be in line for potential chargeback liability. And those employers will also receive a notice of the claim. Let's say they work for your company for, just 1 month, and then they're unsuitable and you let them go, or they decide to quit for greener pastures, they go somewhere else. You're not going to be a base period employer. You're not going to be financially involved in that claim because you didn't report wages during the base period of the claim. But the employers that ex-employee of yours had in the last 3 quarters of 2021 or the 1st quarter of this year, those employers are going to be base period employers. They're going to receive what are called notices of maximum potential chargeback, and they're going to have an opportunity to protest chargeback to their individual tax accounts. See? So during the pandemic, of course, the claim volume went up by about 1,000%. I'm not kidding. About 1,000%. It was about a 10-fold increase in the number of claims. And we got several years worth of claims in 1 year. It was that incredible. But that also resulted in a lot of chargeback notices going out. And some of y'all may have received chargeback notices and not known what to do with them, or maybe you did know what to do with them and you protested the chargeback, and maybe you got chargeback protection, maybe you didn't. Most claims that were filed during the pandemic resulted from the pandemic. And those pandemic era unemployment claims, by and large, resulted in chargeback protection for the employer if the employer protested the claim, followed the instructions, responded on time, those employers, if they explained that the work separation was due to the pandemic, they receive chargeback protection. Because one of the reasons why an employer's account is protected from chargeback is because the work separation resulted from a natural disaster. The pandemic was a good example of a natural disaster. So other employers, though, may not have responded. And so those employers may have received chargebacks. Let me tell you something. With a notice of maximum potential chargeback, that's the employer's opportunity to avoid a chargeback, which is otherwise automatic. It's like night follows day and day follows night. If you're a base period employer on an unemployment claim and you don't protest the notice of maximum potential chargeback, then the chargeback is automatically imposed. See, that's the way the law works. That's the way the law is designed to work. So what's the trick? When you get a notice of maximum potential chargeback, you respond to it according to the instructions, and you make sure that it's timely, and you document your timely response. More on that later. Now, these unemployment benefits are based on the wages that were reported by employers during the base period of the claim. If somebody got a fairly large amount of wages during the base period, they'll get a fairly high weekly benefit amount. If they got a fairly low amount of wages during the base period, their benefit amount will be lower. Just in general, I don't want to bore you all with a lot of mathematical calculations, but the formula for determining benefit amounts, it's hardwired into the Texas Labor Code. And basically, what you do is you take the calendar quarter in which the earnings were the highest during the base period, and you divide that high quarter earnings amount by 25, and that's the weekly benefit amount. And then the maximum benefit amount is going to be 26 times that, because 26 weeks of unemployment benefits is the maximum that anybody can get in Texas, or 27% of the total base period wages, whichever is less. And I know it's complicated, but those calculations are accomplished in a microsecond by the TWC mainframe computer, and the instant somebody files an unemployment claim, the computer pulls together all of their base period wages, carries out the benefit calculations, determines which employers are base period employers, and if benefits start being paid, that's when the notice of maximum potential chargeback is sent out. All right. Now, sometimes benefits are paid before it becomes apparent that the claimant is really ineligible or should be disqualified. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes it happens because an employer files a successful appeal, and the appeal hearing officer reverses an initial determination in favor of the claimant and says the claimant should be disqualified. If that happens, then there's going to be an overpayment of benefits, and the claimant is obligated to refund that money to the TWC. What happens with the chargebacks? The chargebacks that might have gone onto your account are deleted from your tax account, and they will not be used to compute your tax rate. Now, a little bit about how chargebacks work. Chargebacks basically are your share of the unemployment benefits that are paid out to employees who collect unemployment benefits after they file an unemployment claim. If you paid half of the base period wages, you're going to get half of the chargeback liability. If you paid 100% of the wages, you're going to get 100% of the chargeback liability. If you paid only 10% of the wages, you get 10% of the chargeback liability. That's how the system works. So if you only employed somebody for a short period of time and they drew a small amount of benefits, wages from your company, then any chargeback liability that might happen in the future is going to be proportionally small as well. What happens with those chargebacks, though, if they go onto your tax account they influence your state unemployment tax rate for 3 years. That's the way the system is set up. The tax rate calculation formula takes into account your claim history, your claim experience over the past 3 years. And the main determinant of your tax rate is the so-called benefit ratio. The benefit ratio is your 3-year chargeback total divided by your 3-year taxable wage total. So if you have small chargebacks, you're going to have a small tax rate. If you have large chargebacks, a high amount of chargebacks, you're going to have a higher tax rate. So the whole key is minimizing your chargebacks if at all possible. Now, as I said before, you'll get a notice. If you're a base period employer, you'll get notice of a chargeback and an opportunity to respond and show why chargeback should not be imposed. So anytime you get a notice of a claim, whether it's a notice of an initial claim, that's called a notice of application for unemployment benefits, or if it's a notice to a base period employer that was not the last employing unit, a notice of maximal potential chargeback, anytime you get a notice like that, it's very, very important to respond to it in a timely manner according to the instructions on the notice. Follow those instructions exactly and document your timely response. Keep documentation. Send it by a documentable method. You can do it online. You can do it by fax. You can do it by U.S. mail. You can do it by other carrier like FedEx or DHL or UPS. You can also technically do it by hand delivery to any TWC office. That's allowed. Most employers don't do it though. More and more employers are doing it online. But keep a copy of whatever you do in response to an unemployment claim. Because if something goes wrong and TWC for some reason doesn't receive it and you get later a tax rate increase, you want to be able to show that, oh, well, I did respond to that claim. I did protest that chargeback. I did appeal that determination that was against me. So if you can do that, that claim is winnable. All right, there are always deadlines. For most notices, the deadline is 14 days, 14 calendar days from the date that it's mailed to your company. So the initial claim notice, notice of application for unemployment benefits, and also the notice of, the wage verification notice, all of those are 14 days. The initial determination, 14-day appeal period. If the appeal tribunal issues an appeal decision, 14 calendar day appeal period from the date that it was mailed. If the commission makes a decision, 14 days to file a motion for rehearing. So all the appeal periods are 14 calendar days from the date that it was mailed. The only deadline that is different is for a chargeback notice, a notice of maximum potential chargeback for a base period employer that is not the last employing unit. That deadline is 30 calendar days from the date that it was mailed to you. So it's a little bit longer. It's the appeal deadline, the response deadline is longer because if you're a base period employer and they went somewhere else, then probably you're not expecting them to file an unemployment claim. I mean, that's not number one on your radar. And so it may take you a while to locate the records or even remember who that person was. But it's very important if you get a notice to respond. Also, very important, if you get any kind of a notice on any kind of a claim or a chargeback or a tax rate or anything like that, automatically think, okay, well, for some reason, I'm on TWC's radar. I'm not off the TWC grid like I would like to be. So I'm on their radar for some reason, and if I don't understand why I'm on TWC's radar, maybe I'd better call and find out what's going on. What number do you call? You call Commissioner Demerson's office, 1-800-832-9394, option 4. And by the way, he also has, if you like email, if you have a detailed question or you have attachments, he has an email address, employer info, just like it sounds, no spaces or hyphens, employer info at twc.texas, all spelled out, .gov, G-O-V. Once again, that is employer info at TWC.Texas, all spelled out, .gov, G-O-V. Send it there, and that is step one in finding out what's going on. And then Commissioner Demerson's legal staff will jump right on it. We pay attention to the emails we get. If somebody calls us on that 800 number, we pick up on our phone, don't we, Willette? That's right. Kimberly, you know we pick up on our phone in that office because we really take our mission seriously to help employers. Now, one other thing, if you ever have a question about your unemployment tax rate, if there's any determination of the tax department, like independent contractor status for a worker, if the tax department decides that somebody's not an independent contractor but rather are an employee and you should have been reported their wages and paying unemployment tax, or if there's a problem with your tax rate, or something else has happened with your account, like you purchase another restaurant and all of a sudden your tax rate goes up or it goes mysteriously down, there might be a question of transfer of compensation experience from the company that you bought to your company. Anything that comes from the tax department that you're not in agreement with, you have the right to file an appeal. It's not widely advertised, but it is there in commission rule. There's a specific commission rule that deals with appealing tax department determinations, and that is Rule 815.113. Okay? So the so-called Rule 13 appeals. It's called Rule 13 because back before the Workforce Commission, it was a smaller agency that mainly dealt with employment service and unemployment claims, the Texas Employment Commission, and Rule 13 was rule number 13, literally, in the agency rules, and it just kind of kept that nickname. But anyway, Rule 13 appeals are the vehicle by which you can appeal a decision of the tax department, including your tax rate. Now, usually, if you file a Rule 13 tax appeal, your tax account examiner, who is assigned to your account, they will contact you and see if there's a way to work out the appeal without going to an appeal hearing. But if there's not, then what happens is we have a special division in our agency at the commission level. It's called the Special Hearings Unit. And that's one of the special hearings that they do, is tax appeals. And they'll have an attorney who specializes in tax appeals conduct the hearing. You'll offer evidence and testimony. The tax department will send a representative to explain the tax department side of things. And then all of that's recorded, and all of that will go to the Office of the Commissioners with a recommendation as to the outcome and a legal analysis. But then the commissioner staff members, like me, will get on it and we'll study that, and the commissioner will decide how he wants to vote on that appeal. The Rule 13 appeals are decided by the three commissioners themselves. It's the highest level determination within the agency if the commissioners vote on it, and they vote on these tax appeals. And the other offices, they'll vote their own way, however they see fit. So another thing I'd like to mention right quick, you may have heard Joe Monastero mention the fact that there was some good legislation for the restaurant industry and for Texas as a whole. In 2021 and in the third special session, there were some wonderful bills passed. You can't say that about everything that comes out of the session, but these bills were some of the most business-friendly, employer-friendly bills that have ever been issued, and that was basically bills that help keep unemployment tax rates lower than they would have been, especially related to the pandemic. And one of the best things that happened was a huge buy-down of the shortfall in unemployment benefits resulting from the pandemic. The shortfall was between $6 and $7 billion, and Governor Abbott worked with the legislature to enable a buy-down of that shortfall 100%, using federal stimulus money from the pandemic and the CARES Act. That's one of the best applications of tax money that's ever happened, because without that, your state unemployment taxes would have been much, much higher. Now, at this point, I want to mention, there may be some of y'all who, in the audience here, who, or listening, who have had problems with chargebacks and chargeback notices, and maybe you didn't get an opportunity. Maybe you didn't receive a chargeback notice, but you found out later that chargebacks had gone onto your account. Is it too late to do anything about that? Or maybe you didn't think that there was a need to protest the chargebacks because you heard that there was going to be chargeback protection due to the pandemic. And now you found out that your tax rate had gone up, and you looked into it, and online you found chargebacks had gone onto your tax account. Is it too late to do anything about that? The tax department is going to be mailing out some clarification on that. If you receive any kind of a notice from the tax department, any kind, that says anything about chargebacks or responses or appeals or anything like that, treat it very seriously, read it carefully, call our office if you need any clarification, but follow the instructions exactly, respond promptly, and explain how you feel that you didn't get a fair chance to protest the chargebacks, and also explain why you think your tax account should not be charged back with benefits. That's very important. The TWC can protect your account from chargebacks if the reason for the work separation qualifies as one of the exclusions from chargeback liability that is in the Texas Labor Code. And that specific section of the law is section 204.022. If you look in there, there are almost three dozen, that's almost 36, over 30 reasons why an employer's account can be protected from chargeback. So if your reason qualifies, your account can be protected from chargeback, but you have to let the TWC know. The TWC just can't assume that you qualify for chargeback. You have to explain why your account qualifies for chargeback protection. So do that. And if you receive a notice like that and you've got a question or it seems mysterious in any way, remember the toll-free number from Commissioner Demerson is 800-832-9394, or send us an email at employerinfo@twc.texas.gov. Yes, ma'am, that is 800-832-9394, and use option 4 to get to the Commissioner's legal team. And I, or Elsa, or Mario, or Jiku will pick up on it, and we can look the claim up, and we can find out what might have been going on. And I'm kind of a specialist on the taxes, so if you have a complicated tax rate type question, your question might be referred to me, and I can look up your tax account information and see what might have gone on. But we can talk. Don't ever give up all hope, because nothing's final until it becomes final, and it doesn't have to become final as long as you have an appeal right. And we can talk about whether you have appeal rights. So take advantage of that resource. Now, real quick, I know we have just a little time left, and I want to make sure I allow time for questions. Wage claims. The Texas Workforce Commission also enforces the basic wage payment law in Texas, which is the Texas Payday Law, Chapter 61 of the Texas Labor Code. And I'm the one who works on the wage claim appeals in Commissioner Demerson's office. So if you have any kind of a wage-related question, or if you get a wage claim and you want to know how to respond and so on, what might be important, feel free to give me a call, send an email, but don't ignore that either, because that's also a very important thing. If you don't respond to a wage claim, and if the claimant has a decent case for a wage claim and there's no reason to rule against the claimant, then there's going to be a ruling in favor of the claimant. You might have to pay wages. So just respond to those claims. Finally, claim fraud. During the pandemic, there was a tsunami of claim fraud, particularly from identity theft. We got almost 1 million, I'm talking seriously, almost 1 million false identity theft related claims during the pandemic. And it was a worldwide problem. It was so bad because of all the federal stimulus money in the system. It was so bad that we had criminal cartels, international criminal cartels, and also hackers in rogue nations around the world. They would file just bucket loads of fraudulent claims, and some of them got paid out. But luckily, the TWC had a more advanced fraud detection system than a lot of other states did. So luckily, in Texas, the problem was much lower. But if any of y'all ever receive claim notices on people you know are still employed, and they tell you that I didn't file that claim, that might be identity theft. And there's a special portal on the homepage of our website for reporting identity theft related claims. Also, if somebody, it might not be identity theft, it might be ordinary, just dishonest person claim fraud. If you know that somebody is claiming benefits and they're not reporting wages, that's a serious issue. And that can be reported very easily via email. twc.fraud@twc.texas.gov. All right, well, I think I probably made a lot of demands on y'all in terms of attention span and patience with my detailed explanations. So I want to make sure that we allow time for questions. Some of y'all might have burning questions, and I'll be glad to address those as best I can. So if anybody has a question, just raise your hand and a microphone will be brought to you.
So you mentioned, my name is Matt Liber, I'm in Harrison, we do background checks. You mentioned second chance background checks. You know, one thing that we find, especially in restaurants, when we talk to them, is they don't understand the legal liability they have by not doing background checks for negligent hiring. But they also want to make sure they're not excluding people that have criminal backgrounds. So how would you help people define what is an applicable thing in the background to exclude them from a position versus what's something that, you know, isn't job related?
Oh, really great question. The job relatedness of criminal background history, anything in somebody's background relating to criminal history or other kinds of who knows what kind of problems they may have had in life. And this is very important for the whole second chance, anti-recidivism effort and so on. At my agency, we used to have a program called Project Rio, and it was a wonderful program, basically reintegration of offenders. How do you get people back into jobs and so on, despite some hiccups they may have had in their criminal background. And so one thing that is very important is that under the EEOC guidelines, which are on the EEOC website at eeoc.gov, you want to make sure that if you have any kind of criminal history questions during the application process, on the job application itself, or during job interviews, make sure that you can explain how they're related to the job. So the job relatedness of a criminal history problem really counts for a lot. And if you're able to demonstrate that a certain type of criminal history is related to the job to where it would not be a good idea from a safety standpoint, the safety of other people, primarily customers or coworkers, to hire somebody with a certain type of criminal background, then probably you can pass the EEOC guidelines regarding criminal history background checks, the use of criminal history information in a hiring decision. But in general, because statistical evidence has shown that just a flat bar on employment of anybody with a criminal background has been used in the past to have a disparate impact on minority hiring. That's why the EEOC is very sensitive to this issue. So you want to be able to explain that everybody's getting a fair chance at being given consideration, equal consideration for hiring. And sure, they may have had a criminal problem, but if it's not related to the job, then it should not be a bar to them being employed. And in the EEOC guidelines on their website, one of the examples they give is somebody who's 40 years old, and when they were 18, you know, when you're young and foolish, you do young and foolish things, right? So when they were 18, they got caught with marijuana. And in most areas, that's a felony. Okay, so they might have a felony on their record from years ago. But if the job you're hiring them for doesn't have any particular issue with somebody who had a marijuana conviction on their record from being hired, then go ahead and hire them, especially because that was so far in the past that it's not really related to their current job with you. Presumably, by the time they're 40, they've gotten more mature, they are conducting themselves more like an adult, they're more responsible, and they're going to be the kind of employee you would hope to get. So give people a good second chance. And one of the things that you can get some help on with screening like that is by consulting a background check company or any company that consults on that, and also local workforce solutions centers can help you with job screening, employment screening of individuals, and they can also help answer some of your basic questions on that. So hopefully that addresses it a little bit for you, sir. And did you want to try your question again?
Okay. Oh, now you can hear me. Okay, so my first thing is I just wanted to make a comment, just so y'all know. I had about 3 or 4 of the fraudulent. I mean, I have an employee of over 40 years. And I got 2 from him alone that were fraudulent. It was really hard to address that in that Texas Fraud thing. Like, it was more work than I could possibly have provided.
Yeah.
So I called and I did what I could to report it, but y'all, I just have to say that's real difficult to navigate. And I did like try to get help. So just so y'all know, that might be something I want to think about. But okay, so an employee of less than 3 months prior to pandemic files. Now I'm learning that I'm 3 quarters back, and I paid him. He quit, and I always thought that a voluntary quit with no notice would not qualify. Mm-hmm. Okay, so he filed. Mail during the pandemic was an issue, so I was supposed to have received a notice on October 1st, which I didn't, and I only knew about it when I went into my file actively. And then I called and I filed an appeal, and I did all that, right? Now he's got the maximum benefit coming out of me. He's making more than he made with me now. But I filed the appeal. I had an appeal hearing 2 weeks ago. And the determination was there was no good reason for me not to file on a more timely basis. Denied. And I just threw it away. I mean, so everything that you're saying kind of sounds like, well, that's great, but it didn't seem to apply at all.
Yes, ma'am. So her basic issue is that she had an employee who was on board for about 3 months and then quit without notice. And, she thought, like most people do, and this is the fact, that normally if somebody quits without notice, they don't give you a chance to address whatever dissatisfaction they may have. Normally, that's a disqualifying work separation. They should be disqualified and your account protected from chargeback. You might not have been a base period employer on that, I don't know. 3-month employee. I see. Okay, so you're probably a base period employer then, and so you received a notice of maximum potential chargeback as a base period employer, and pandemic-related mail problems and so on. Your response was late? Okay. So you just went through an appeal hearing a couple of weeks ago, and the hearing officer decided that you didn't have a good enough reason for responding late, so your account remains subject to chargeback. You should definitely file an appeal to the commission, and you now have Commissioner Demison's contact information. Contact our office, and we can talk with you about, little things, no promises, no guarantees, but little things that you can bring up in your appeal to the commission that might make a difference. Okay? So get with us on that. That could be a winnable claim. Any other?
Hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. My name's Allie Jarrett. I feel your pain. The Postal Service just getting anything post-pandemic is horrible. And just to follow up on your question, is there a way to send us information two ways? Maybe one by mail, maybe one electronically? I don't know, but the onus is always on us and is pretty rough. So.
Yes, ma'am.
But my question is, opening a new business, is there a way to get a better tax rate from the business in existence and how you've handled your claims over the period to get a better tax rate?
Okay,
not?
so you're talking about acquiring an existing
No,
business?
starting a new business.
Starting a new
But you
business?
have a current business that has a very good tax rate. The new
Okay.
business will have a horrible tax rate.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a way to use your good performance in your other business, of your record of doing business, to get the better tax rate?
The answer is no. If you are a separate account, a new account with a separate business that is basically separately chartered with the Texas Secretary of State's office, so it's a separate business, separate operation, separate federal ID number, and so on, you're going to have a separate TWC tax account number, and there is a so-called new employer tax rate that is hardwired into the Texas Labor Code. It's set at 2.70%. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. So if it's a new, separate business and you intend to maintain it that way, then it's going to have a new employer tax rate for about the first 6 calendar quarters of operation, about the first year and a half. After that, you're eligible for a calculated tax rate based on your claim experience, your claim history. So if you've had no chargebacks, you'll go down to the minimum. You'll see a sudden reduction all the way to whatever the minimum is that year. And historically, the past 3 years, the minimum tax rate has been 0.31%. That's not bad. That's $27.60 per employee per year. The new employer tax rate, 2.70%, that's $243 per employee per year. If you have the maximum tax rate, 6.31%, it's going to be, almost $600 per employee per year, unfortunately. So there is a real incentive to have a lower tax rate, control those chargebacks, and I'll give you a little inside tip on keeping your tax rate low. Remember, the tax rate calculation formula is the main component is the benefit ratio, which is 3 years of chargebacks divided by 3 years of taxable wages. Taxable wages, the bigger that number is, the lower your tax rate's going to be. Taxable wages, that is the amount of wages that you have reported and paid taxes on. So if you're behind on your taxes, that's going to needlessly reduce your taxable wage amount, which will artificially inflate your unemployment tax rate. So everything is connected. And if you would like some clarification on things like that, I'll be glad to see if I can help you. Just, contact me using the contact information that we gave you, the 800 number, or our employer info at twc.texas.gov email address. You had a question, ma'am? How long before the new employer tax rate adjusts? That is about 6 calendar quarters of operation. It's about a year and a half. So if you've already been a new employer with that tax rate for about a year and a half, you're probably coming up pretty close to when you get a calculated tax rate. And if you would like to get an exact date from the tax department, send an email to employerinfo@twc.texas.gov, and we will refer it for you to the director of the tax department and have one of their account examiners get in touch with you. They have the records.
On the maximum chargebacks, the employee quits. If we're the primary, are we still going to be charged for it if they quit? If they've been with us for a while, or?
Well, yes. The notice of maximum potential chargeback, is a form. On page 1 is the basic information about base period wages and how your maximum potential chargeback is calculated. But on page 2, which is the reverse, there is a listing of various work separation reasons, and if somebody quits voluntarily, they leave while continued work is still available, that should result in chargeback protection for your account. Mark number 6. I believe that's number 6 on the form. Just mark it, and then there's a little bit of a space below, and you can just note that the claimant quit while continued work was still available to fill in the blank. Go to another company, to move to another town because they wanted a higher pay rate or whatever. All of that should result in chargeback protection for your company. I'll be available, using that contact information, and be sure to visit Lori Larea's Workforce Solutions booth, 1705. 1706.
It has all of your data on one page.
Yes, ma'am. And they've got a lot of what I talked about on a free handout for y'all at booth 1706, 1706. So thank you all very much for coming today, and let us know if we can help.